Is it possible that people who made religions were just schizophrenic? It's very possible. And also very clever and shrewd people who knew how to manipulate their tribe, and that tribe in turn did that to other tribes and had a snowball effect. Very conveniently, prophets would go alone up a hill or into a cave and come back with a tablet or some new revelations. And people would lap it up for lack of education and entertainment. All this started to peak about 2,000 years before Belgian techno band released their techno anthem song, Pump Up Their Jam. Or that they were very intelligent and played on people's imaginations by fabricating these stories. It's most likely that religions were backsolved. Religion was merely a way to ensure a society had structure, laws, order, and cohesion. The stories we're familiar with come from oral traditions, and then they were fit to a particular narrative. The notion of talking to God was most likely something added to explain the unexplainable, so as to retain the primacy of the religion. I don't think so. Thousands of years ago, they lived in a scary world where nothing made sense. I think a lot about what it must be like to live in a world with no knowledge. You can't read. You can't write. Your whole family can get sick. But you don't know what that is. And drop dead at any time with no explanation. One year it rains so hard that everything floods and everyone goes hungry. The next year, no rain at all, so everyone goes hungry again. Death everywhere. At any point a marauding horde can appear on the horizon, burn your village to the ground, kill you, rape your wife and kids, and take them as slaves. And still that might be a better outcome than the homicidal king, chief, general that runs your town, whose every whim you must endure or else. And all of this you have to face day after day, without ibuprofen. I think you have these religions in every culture ever because our conscious brain demands answers. Evolution has gifted us with consciousness and the ability to ask questions like, why am I here? What is my purpose? Quote, but without the proper tools to truly answer those questions, we fill in the knowledge gaps with nonsense. So no, talking to a god or yourself is most likely just one of the many obvious coping mechanisms we employ to make sense of the chaos. You don't have to be schizophrenic to misinterpret how the world works, or convince yourself that something innocuous was something meaningful. You don't have to have schizophrenia. Many prophets have likely had bipolarity, and in a euphoric mania, which I've had thrice. They use all their intuition, experience, and love to think of new ways to help mankind. During upsetting and scary euphoric episodes that can last weeks, and kill you by dehydration and stress heart attack. It is incredibly seductive when you're in it. You feel like finally your uncertainties have vanished and you are on the cusp of not just an answer, but the answer. But sadly the deductions and conclusions yielded during a euphoric manic relapse are also incredibly haphazardly slapdash thrown together and can be incredibly circular reasoning. If you want to yield any diamonds from 2 weeks of lumps of coal from hypomania, you need to have recorded all of it and then spend a frigging 6 months trying to puzzle things together into cohesive and defendable ideas. The basic core of the problem is that mania makes everything whimsical. Your concept of time is warped 6 ways till Sunday. It's much better to meditate, study, and hypothesize about ideas in ordered settings. You get much more work done. Honestly. The question of how religions get started is a deep and abiding sociological mystery. It's true, a psychotic person can ramble out scripture and bamboozle followers into creating a cult. But many more cults have been formed by simple con artists and frauds. Another explanation is the stoned Moses theory. Early humans might have gotten their apocalyptic visions from hallucinogens, which at the time they did not understand. Religions around the world use some kind of psychoactive substance in ritual. There's also the Good Friday experiment, where test subjects reported profound religious experiences after being given psilocybin, so evidence is strong to support this theory. But it's still largely a mystery. This notion was proposed by Canadian psychologist Julian Jaynes in his book The Origin of Consciousness in the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind. It's a compelling read, but I tend to regard it more as poetic speculation. Why would they be schizophrenic? You can make things up while just being stupid. Yes. Or high. How else can you explain a guy in desert listening to a talking burning bush? Sounds like a hallucination. Interesting question. Don't have an answer for you but can offer some more confusion. Lol. You should look into schizophrenia in Western society versus others. It tends to be negative and violent voices for Westerners, but other cultures experience kinder, supporting voices, sometimes as ancestors or religious figures. I don't know how exactly that fits in with your question, but think it adds an interesting dynamic to it. In L. Ron's case, it seems obvious that he made it all up while on LSD. The only thing that disqualifies anyone from joining hardcore Sea Org is having taken LSD. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that they were schizophrenic, and that there had been a material, scientifically explainable cause for their experiences. Why would that be mutually exclusive with the prospect of an immaterial cause, i.e. God? Aristotle would have called God the efficient cause, and schizophrenia the material cause. As far as I can tell, nothing rules out the possibility of God's existence, including science. Proving a negative is unreasonable to expect of science, so we therefore shouldn't infer God's non-existence on the basis of scientific knowledge. Every single person commenting is apparently an atheist that thinks all the billions of religious people are delusional, victims, idiots, and who prefers to sink into nihilism and despair and make themselves the highest moral authority in the universe, despite themselves being flawed and broken people. What else is new in the Reddit wretched hive of scum and villainy? In short, for Christianity, the recorded and testified lives of the apostles and of Jesus himself make that impossible. In addition to accuracy and veracity of the historical record of the Old Testament, the Bible was written over the course of thousands of years, by people from a variety of cultures, socio-political status, in various languages, and on 3 continents. It still remains the most accurate historical document of all time, bar none, and the lives of the apostles in particular demonstrate quite clearly that for a very, very long time, there was no personal benefit to being a Christian, and especially not for Jesus or the apostles themselves, who dedicated their lives to ministry and were each horribly persecuted and executed in one way or another. Crucifixion, boiling in hot oil, etc. The authorities of the Roman Empire and of the Jewish people themselves were both very opposed to Christianity, yet it spread anyway. There is no reason for tax collectors, doctors, and Pharisees like Matthew, Luke, and Paul, who were all highly competent professionals, to abandon their comfy, high-status lives for a life of absolute poverty and torture. You can read their writing for yourself and ask if they sound crazy or high. The Book of Romans is still used today as an example of how to set up, defend, and execute logical argumentation, etc. I could keep going, but y'all probably stopped listening. Anyway, TLDR. Of course not. Not high on drugs, either. Everyone arguing the apostles were just schizo or high. These kinds of arguments just look silly and uninformed to anyone who knows what they're talking about. Definitely possible. Robert Sapolsky did a brilliant lecture on the idea. https u2.be/4wikwookb. The earliest proto-religions all around the world and associated deities all had to do with agriculture, the changing of the seasons, and general seasonal environmental effects. Please end the snows. Bring spring. AKA please Yoster, with Yoster having its etymological root word in warmth. So someone said they want warmth. Warmth came in spring. And eventually people asked for warmth, until others noticed them asking for it out loud and did so as well. They weren't crazy. They were just tired, scared and on the brink of death, and just said out loud to anyone that would hear, "Please make it warm again." Thus a god of spring developed as others asked for warmth. Same with fall, winter, solstice, harvests, and eventually anything that couldn't really explain. Every time my schizophrenic relative stops taking their meds, they become very zealous, very fundamentalist. They're normal religious on their meds, but without them, they're straight out of Jerusalem. Yes, this has been proposed by various scholars, including Robert Sapolsky, professor of neuroendocrinology at Stanford. Just recently watched his whole lecture series on human behavior. And this is the subject of one entire lecture. One reason why schizophrenia may exist is that its milder forms may cause people to hear voices in a religious way, rather than a life-destroying way. Well, the Gospels of Jesus were 4 different accounts of the same events. It wasn't one person, but, I mean, religion is a mess. You can't apply logic. I feel like if you read the Bible it becomes fairly obvious in some cases.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.